I'll now take questions, please. Any questions? Matt Collins?
I think it's a very interesting contribution there, because somebody's worked in the rail industry over 40 years. Since privatisation, it's something that we've experienced, it's been so-called, particularly with the, when you get the, what you call the privatisation, you get like the contractors employed to do like renewal work, who then subcontract the work to the subcontractor, who effectively subcontracts it again to people on like low paying insists that they all become self-employed, and that they set up these umbrella companies that actually say this is your wage, this is what we're going to pay you, but then deduct them for the actual paying them their wages and administration charge. It's something that but it's not only the problem that you've highlighted, but it's also the it's all to do with the austerity that's been introduced by this government, particularly like with the fact that the HSE is being cut, so you can't rely on the health and safety to come in to actually check that these workers are actually working in a safe environment. It's a very serious issue, an issue that we all need to be aware of and take up. Particularly, unfortunately, because one of the major was like Korea. They were.
That's right.
We managed to. But they used to come bust. It's very difficult to find these people out, because we will have negotiations as a trade union with people like Network Rail, but we have no control over who Network Rail employ. And it's the same situation that you got. It's the subcontracting to the subcontractor to the subcontractor. And it's a very serious issue that that if we're not careful, it's nothing new. I mean, we've recently seen like and it's probably like the blacklisting campaign. Will realise, this was going on, going back. I mean, this was all introduced by Thatcher initially, that, the idea, you become self-employed, you become your own boss, you don't have to worry about, trade unions, but then what they didn't tell you, that once you do that, you're on your own, you've got no security, no bills, no means of like negotiations, so either you won't accept the rates or you're out. And it's something that it's an important, it's something that we all need to be aware of, because it's one of these things like a creeping philosophy. It creeps into industries and it starts to grow and grow and grow. It's like cancer, unfortunately. And unless you can stamp it out as soon as you can, it becomes a nightmare.
Thank you, Pat.
Just to follow on from that, there was a report produced by the Organisation for Economic and Cooperation and Development that covers 34 countries. The interesting thing about this report, it found that when it came to equality, incomes, household, etc., of those 34 countries, where do you think the UK was? 34. Right. However, on pensions, we done quite well. On state pensions, we came 32nd out of 34. But the interesting thing is, the same organisation, 40 years ago, pre-Thatcher, carried out its widespread survey and concluded the UK was second equal society among the 34. That's where we were, and now you know where we are now. Last. And a lot of it is down to the neoliberal economic policies of the Thatcher and what has carried on since.
Graham Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. We've all got solutions to this, but I'm asking you, what is the answer to this? I mean, the left wing are dreaming of a Labour government as a panacea for everything. Well, I'm not convinced. I'm convinced we're going to get a Labour government next, but I'm not convinced we should be waiting for that. We should be doing stuff now, whatever you think of that. I'll give you a story about the blacklist. My grandson, 10 years of age. Grandad, I've heard about this blacklist, he said. I was 10. 10 years of age, you could read. Yes, he said, Grandad, are you on this blacklist? I said, I hope so. But here I'm not. I've gone on the page description that. But it just shows you, I'm going to lecture my grandson, but the environment he's probably been in, and I'm encouraged by it, he's 19 now. I'm encouraged by it, but that's just a little aside I've put in there. But basically, should we be waiting for the panacea, the Nineveh of a land government, or should we be doing stuff now, Mike?
Well, on the question of blacklist, just to get that out of the way,
Yeah.
I first was on the Economic League's blacklist for those who remember it, according to my file, in 1976. There was 11 other, I was told by Lee Days, who conducted my case, there was 11 other cases of breach of English common law by various companies. But however, they apologised to me in 2016, so that's okay, isn't it? With regards, I mean, this isn't a panacea, but this is a draft policy that I'd like to see all Labour councils take up. Now, it's on there, if that wants to be passed back, just have a read of that. That's what I would like to see. With regards to a Labour government, the problem is nobody knows when an election going to come. And it could come at any time. And that is a problem for us in a sense, because we're all sort of on an election footing, which means you put other things to the back burner, basically. And, you know, if we all had a crystal ball and we knew exactly when the election is going to come, all the better. But it's a minority government, possibly losing its main support, which is the DUP, at the moment. And I understand that even the Tories have been put on an election footing, so who knows?
Stuart.
Yeah, Stuart, which is a national education union. Following on from Graham's point about, I'm not very familiar about the Labour government's policies on this. I do know that on the trade union laws, the Labour government actually tightened and made the trade union laws worse by, requiring trade unions to provide all the names and addresses of all the people being balloted. So if you made a few errors on there, they could just declare it illegal, and that's what's been happening on certain cases, actually. The other thing I think it's important to say is that this government, considering a lot of money is being lost, actually has talked about reforming the service company legislation, and actually a previous chancellor tried to put up and was pushed back national insurance contributions of self-employed, because self-employed are advantageous vis-a-vis directly employed people. That's sort of a pressure for people to go into that. So I don't think it's completely true that this government is completely happy with it. I think they recognise they're losing a lot of money on it. But as far as I know, the Labour government did nothing at all about this deregulation of labour and the rights of workers in the 97 to 2010 government period.
I think with regards to the Labour governments, the last Labour government, I mean, I don't actually think that was a Labour government, let's be honest, Red Tories, yes, but you know, that's about as far as it went, as far as I'm concerned. I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what I think the Labour Party should do. Take off all the legal restrictions on the trade union movement. Bring it back to how we had it before Thatcher, 40 years ago. They can forget the minimum wage. We'll sort our own out if we can organise, if we can agitate, if we can campaign, if we can put picket lines up, if we can call for solidarity. And that's where we go from now. That's what we want the next Labour government to do. But also, we want our trade unions to also play their part as well. Because let's be honest, they haven't exactly gone out of their way to fight what's going on with precarious employment. You know, I haven't seen any marches about it. So,
Okay. Kathy?
Kathy Gaffney, Unite Union. I'm just two points. One is a question. I'm asking for an update of what happens at the moment. Now obviously UCAT as a building workers union doesn't exist any longer. It's now part of Unite. But UCAT did have a document that got used basically where there were organisations that were getting, you know, privatised, things were privatised out, and building companies and so on were touting for the work. But you know, it can be demanded that these organisations are not currently blacklisting, although that's very hard to prove because some of them that say they're not, they still are. But you can also say all sorts of other things, like you know, that they allow trade unions, and you know, whatever is the most important thing to say. So labour councils and so on, they can be actually making these stipulations. Now, I'm just asking how much of that is actually going on, to your knowledge, and presumably it's now Unite policy that they support these sort of things happening, and that document is now presumably a Unite document, because it's happening more and more that companies, you know, public services are getting privatised out, and that there's people touting for the work. So is that important opportunity being taken up? So that's my question. I just want to mention something that is relevant, because somebody I used to work with now works for Domino's Pizza, and she had to, you know, she's just about due to retire, but she had to make sure that she had a job before she could get a mortgage. But she went out and got a job with Domino's Pizza, and they have all kinds of very bad employment practices, and she's written it up in a big long document that she's trying to get, you know, newspapers and TV people to turn it into a programme or something. And I've read it because I helped her with an early draft that she was working on. But you know, if there's any contacts that could help her to get some publicity about it, obviously she wants to get the place unionised, but it isn't. And that's a very difficult job. But I think she realises that as soon as it's obvious that she's sticking her head up through the parapet, then she'll probably get the sack, but she's not that bothered now. She's got the mortgage, but you know, these are the sort of things that there's not enough awareness about how awful the place is, you know. So I know a lot of the stories about her particular place. So just information.
I'll take two more, please, because the time's now pressing. Brother at the back.
Yeah. Chris O'Sullivan, Unite and National Shopkeepers Network. I'd like to thank Conway for opening up the discussion on precarious workers. I think it's a really important topic. My own anecdotal experience will be some of the youth work here in Birmingham. And obviously I think the generations that are coming up now, and my one included, are probably don't really know anything else about precarious work. I've got my friends and colleagues and people in our generation, I speak to them, and obviously the stories I hear about, you know, 0-hour contracts and how that gets conducted, and the day-to-day kind of experience of that is they wait for their rotors and they wait for their worksheets to come on via text or via WhatsApp message, and sometimes they're waiting early hours in the morning. And when you think of those kind of images, it's not too reminiscent to, well, 100 years ago when men would go down to the docks and they'd wait for someone to pick their heads out. And if your face didn't fit, you won't get any work that day. And these aren't just people like 15, 16-year-olds. These are university graduates. These are skilled people. These are people with an education behind them. But obviously, this is the jobs they find themselves with. Last year, when we had that great kind of day of action, the fast food rights day of action, when we saw a triple threat of TGI Fridays, McDonald's and Wetherspoons going all out on strike, very exploited workers, very vicariate workers, if you will, I thought that was great. My own union, Unite, played a big part of that alongside Labour's union. However, there was a bit of isolation and kind of a lack of support, in my opinion, to some of the other precarious workers, the really, really precarious workers. Not that there's a competition going on with people from Deliveroo, from Uber Eats, people who don't really have a standard kind of workplace. And I have experienced hesitance and in some cases resistance from the bigger established unions to try and organise these groups. Fantastic work by the IWW and the IWGB doing work on that, but I have found a lot of resistance from the bigger unions, and I don't know if that's a historical thing, because obviously the unions today, Unite, Unison and so forth, the biggest ones, they come from a long tradition of big workplaces, shop stewards, people on the floor. But obviously, 21st century, platform capitalism, app capitalism, whatever you want to call it, a lot of jobs don't have a workplace as such, a direct workplace. We've seen this with our own home care workers here. So I think, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, I think the bigger unions now, we should take kind of inspiration from these smaller ones, these kind of ones, that they should be on the fringe about how we should be flexible and how we should be able to adapt. And last point, even, it's not even these young workers doing hospitality and retail, even more professional workers I find themselves precarious. Take the example of foster care workers who are legally not defined as workers. They have no worker status in the traditional sense when it comes to local authorities. They don't have a proper pension fund, they don't have a contract as such. And obviously they provide a vital kind of social service, but I'd say they're extremely precarious as well. So they'd love to hear your opinion, on those opinions on that.
Okay, Richard Hatcher.
Yeah, NEU. I wasn't aware of how widespread precarious work was till I looked at a report that the TUC published last year, a couple of days ago, but actually it was in May last year. And the figures they give are that 1 in 9 workers is in a precarious situation. 12.something% of the workforce. That's extremely high, and it's been growing in some sectors quite rapidly over the last few years. So we're not just talking about construction and rail, and I echo some of the points that Comrade Darius has just been making. Care work, hospitality work, jobs that are predominantly women are extremely vulnerable to various forms of precarious work. And of course, young workers in particular, mainly not in trade unions, not really aware of what trade unions can do, and not seeing any sign that trade unions are doing much about it. We have these meetings every month, and we hear a speaker on a really important issue. Over the last few months in the Trades Council, we've been thinking about how we can take up issues and pursue them in a systematic way, month after month, rather than just an issue appears, disappears, onto the next one. And I think this is a prime example. If we want to attract young workers to the trade union movement and to Birmingham Trades Council, these are the sorts of issues we have to take up. And what there should be in the city is a cross-union campaign against precarious work, and it doesn't exist, and that's a terrible indictment of the trade union movement. There are also, just finishing, but there are also some specific demands we can make now on the Labour Council, because the Labour Council spends billions of pounds of our money. Its total budget's about £3 billion a year.
1.1 billion is controllable by it, can decide where it spends it. And it can use that leverage to demand certain conditions from the suppliers and the people supplying goods and services. Does it do that about precarious work? I think that's another avenue we should explore, not just for the frontline suppliers, but for their supply chains as well, that could well be relying on exactly the forms of precarious work that we've been hearing about.
Okay.
So I hope we can take that up at an executive meeting.
Okay, brother.
Well,
Brother.
Me?
Yes.
Oh,
You did raise your hand.
Larry Watson, I'm one of them, but I belong to Unite, but I don't have a branch. You know, which branch I belong.
yeah, you've been a branch.
Midland branch.
601
601, no, I'm not in checking around. Basically, I think it's quite widespread amongst the people I come across. And it has also seeped into where the trade union organized, but trade unions are not very strong. I can give example, for example, like Kane Foods. Kane Foods is well known, where the United was organized, and now they are trying to change the contract, bring the agency workers, and this is how I think in the long term they will get rid of the union from the company. I will to the next point, and that is, it is not only that people are sent the messages and the text message or something like telephone call, turn up so and so time, which reminds the old tactics before, of the late 50s, etc. I was with a guy yesterday actually, lunchtime, Sunday lunchtime, and he was, Monday, he seen a telephone call at my house. He said, I've got to go to work tomorrow, 5 o'clock. That's the situation in which people are finding nowadays. And another factor which has now seeped in, which I didn't know it for a long time until I did come across, the firms like the DPD, everyone is self-employed, frankly, in DPD, who are doing the deliveries to your house. And they are all paid the rate of a delivery of one envelope to deliver to you. I think it's £1.80 per envelope, something like that. And then the firm deducts from them. And if they have any time off without authorization, then they also are penalized. Not that they are paid ever because they are self-employed. And I think it's quite widespread. And it hasn't picked up by the trade unions. It will need quite a big struggle actually to change that. And I think that's what we say. I've spoken about it.
That was a final question, by the way. So, if you'd like to answer those, please.
I'll do my best. I didn't catch the name of the shop steward, National Shop Stewards, Chris. You're right. It was my father's time. You would go to the factory gate and you'd be told you and you, or the docks or the pit. That's the way it worked. Now they contact you by social media at any time of the day or night, 24/7. And the idea is, where do we bring back the tradition of trade unionism, of solidarity, of like-minded people coming together in a common cause? Because really that's what we have to do. And I agree, this meeting, first time I came to the Trades Council in the 70s from my branch, Birmingham Midland branch of electricians. There was a good 200. We met over in Broad Street. So wouldn't we like to see those days back again? But, it won't happen if we don't do anything. So that's that. The other thing is, just a little follow-on, is that it must be about 3 weeks ago now, a little article in the Telegraph by a right-wing think tank that said the way to get rid of Corbyn and what he stands for is to eradicate PAYE. In other words, put you all on self-employed.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can thank